Hey everyone, off the mic Sports Network, giving you some of my takeaways from the NFL this week. We have 2 weeks to go in the season. We got a Monday night game, Packers and Saints coming up later, and that should be a massacre. Spencer Rattler starting in the game. The Packers are going to the playoffs. The Saints stink, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about a subject that's kind of, in some ways, near and dear to my heart because I got to cover both of these guys while they were in college in the Pac-12, and then one of them went to the SEC, won a Heisman. Both of them are Heisman Trophy winners. They went 1-2 in the 2024 NFL Draft, and one of them's doing really well. Is going to go to the playoffs. One of them is on a really bad slide. Their coach got fired. They both went to bad organizations, but it's Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels. I got to cover Caleb Williams his last 2 years at USC. I got to cover Jayden Daniels' first few seasons of his career at Arizona State. They are both phenomenal young men, both phenomenal quarterbacks. But you know what happens, and we did this with Bryce Young, and I think we've jumped to conclusions with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I think Bryce Young's actually starting to look really good with Carolina, and credit to Dave Canales, but that's for another video. What we need to talk about here is a lot of people are jumping to really early conclusions about this Jayden Daniels, Caleb Williams debate. And these two are forever going to be linked together because when you're quarterbacks and you are lumped and you are taken in the same draft, you are naturally going to get compared to one another. And considering these two went 1-2 in the draft, everybody's like, oh, okay. And they're the last two Heisman winners before Travis Hunter won it this year. So naturally, there's a lot of comparisons that you can make. And I love Jayden Daniels. I think he is a phenomenal competitor, phenomenal athlete, makes spectacular plays. And I think it's awesome what he has done with the Washington Commanders this season. But, and this is going to piss some people off, I still think Caleb Williams is the better quarterback. And I think a lot of people are getting stuck on records and getting stuck on how great Washington is doing this year. And they're not looking at just the basic facts. Yes, the QBRs are way off. Jayden Daniels fourth in the league in QBR. But Caleb Williams has less interceptions. And Caleb Williams, think about what Caleb Williams has had to endure this season. This team, it's ironic that when these two faced off, it changed the course of both of their seasons. The miracle Hail Mary at the end of the game, we can go into detail about how badly that was botched by the Bears. That changed the season. The Bears haven't won since then. Meanwhile, the Commanders are going to go to the playoffs, going to be a pretty damn dangerous team. Meanwhile, the Bears are going to have a new coaching staff. They might have a new general manager. They're going to basically start over. And everybody seems to be wanting to blame Caleb Williams for all of the deficiencies with the Chicago Bears. Like, I understand that when Caleb Williams got drafted, he was anointed as this great prospect. And believe me when I tell you, I watched this guy play a number of home games at USC, and I've seen plays that only Patrick Mahomes could make. And some of them were even harder than what Patrick Mahomes does in the NFL. That's how good Caleb Williams is, okay? So all of these people who want to just, jump to conclusions and just basically say, yeah, Jayden Daniels was my number one. It's really easy to say that when you look at these situations. Yes, the Washington Commanders were a disastrous organization when they were the Washington football team and the Washington Redskins. They now have new ownership, and they've got a guy in Dan Quinn. Say what you will about him. He may not be the greatest head coach. The guy's been to a Super Bowl. Yeah, he blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl as a head coach of the Falcons, but he got a team to the Super Bowl. This guy's been a head coach and done it at a very high level for a lot of his career. So you knew when he came to Washington that there was going to be structure there. Then you look at the offensive coordinator. Cliff Kingsbury is one of the great offensive minds. He did it for a long time in the NFL. He did it for a long time in college. As a head coach, it's debatable what you think about him, but he's a really good offensive mind. Clearly he was, because USC, he was coaching Caleb Williams. And what happened was Caleb Williams had a lame duck head coach in Matt Eberflus, who shouldn't have come back and was in way over his skis for most of the season and just in over his head with some of the time management issues. Like I said, the whole botching of the end of the game against the Commanders that really changed the course of the season. We talked about the game on Thanksgiving that got him fired. the Bears are just in such a worse situation where Caleb Williams had to come in there and basically be the savior and the second coming of God. Whereas Jayden Daniels is expected to do the same thing, but he is in a much better situation with the coach, the organizations in a better ownership estate. Like it's just there's a lot of it's just a lot more cohesiveness. It's a lot of dysfunction with the Bears, which is weird because both of these organizations going into this thing before Daniel Snyder obviously got out of there, it's it's just like I don't think both of these situations are equal. Let me be clear. I think both these guys are outstanding, and I think they're going to both have great NFL careers. But let's not get it twisted here. There's a reason Caleb Williams was taken number one. Don't try to rewrite history and tell me that Jayden Daniels, if he was taken by the Chicago Bears, would be any better than Caleb Williams is right now. That situation is a disaster. Is a disaster. I'm so disastrous. My chin's hitting the microphone right now. But it's just like people just are so devoid of context when it comes to these debates that it becomes so infuriating to just see certain people who have great platforms just saying, trying to just narrate history and try and rewrite something, because Jayden Daniels is going to win the Rookie of the Year in the NFL, even though Brock Bowers could have a pretty good argument, but the Raiders are terrible. But that game, it can't be understated enough. That game in Washington, really in Maryland, they play in Landover, Maryland, but that game in Washington between the Commanders and Bears, that Hail Mary, changed the entire course of the season. If that doesn't get complete, who's to say what happened? And maybe we're looking at Caleb Williams differently, but I just think it's really ridiculous to just, completely look at the records, because Caleb Williams has been playing really, really well. The Bears are just not a good football team. They've made some horrible decisions. He's behind a worse offensive line. He's got a worse coordinator. He started with the worst head coach. It's just, guys, let's not try to rewrite history here and say, and just change everything and say, yeah, Jayden Daniels should have been the number one pick. He was not going to be the number one pick. Caleb Williams is one of the most gifted and talented quarterbacks that I've ever seen come into the NFL in a long, long time. Will he become Trevor Lawrence? Because that was who the previous one of these things was. Will he become Trevor Lawrence? We'll see if the Bears beat him into the ground. And that would be really unfortunate. But here we are, almost at the end of their first seasons, and we're already starting to change things. So everybody needs to calm down. I'm not trying to piss off people in Washington, because I know a lot of people who root for the Commanders, and I think it's awesome that they are good and they are a lot of fun to watch. But let's not try to act like this is like this is even a debate right now. Let's talk about this in a couple of years, and maybe it's up for debate. But I still think all along, no matter how their careers shape out, Caleb Williams was the more talented guys, and the Bears were more than justified in taking Caleb Williams. Let's put this up for debate as well. Okay? Don't even kid yourselves, Commanders fans. If the roles were reversed, the Washington Commanders, if they had the number one pick and the Bears had the number two pick, don't kid yourselves. Caleb Williams would have been the number one pick. You want to know why? Number one, of course, he's the more talented one. Number two, he is from the Washington, D.C. area. There's your other test right there. If you had the number one pick, who would you take? Nobody before the draft. You could say that now, but nobody before the draft was going to say, if the Washington Commanders had the number one pick, were they going to take Jayden Daniels? You are full of crap if you said that, okay? And I know there are people out there who said they would honestly take Jayden Daniels over Caleb Williams. And there are bright football minds like Dan Orlovsky. And I think you guys need to reevaluate everything. Dan Orlovsky played quarterback. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Just because Caleb Williams improvises and does more things, the guy does things on the football field that most people can't do. Like I said, the only quarterback that I saw make a number of different plays is Patrick Mahomes. And the problem is Caleb Williams in Chicago doesn't have an Andy Reid to rein it in. And that's why you're seeing sort of this dysfunction and not a lot of wins. And I think we just expected more, and that's why this debate has happened. So that's all that I got here for you now. I'm going to have some Browns thoughts coming up here on the channel momentarily, or later down the line, depending on when you watch this video. Hit that subscribe button if you want to watch Brown's thoughts or anything else, my wrestling content as well. Really exciting time here as we head towards the end of the year. Happy holidays whenever you watch this video. Happy New Year. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and I will talk to you guys real soon. Bye bye.